Hello and welcome to World News on TVP World. I'm Marie Caso. Poland, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia are withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention. The agreement bans producing, stockpiling and using anti-personnel landmines by signatory parties. The decision comes after officials of the four countries declared their readiness to withdraw from the agreement. On Friday, the Lithuanian defense minister said that the withdrawal could be part of a broader regional initiative. The country ratified the treaty prohibiting the usage of anti-personnel mines in 2004. The move to leave the convention will require a proposal from the president following approval from the State Defense Council and the Lithuanian parliament.
In light of these considerations, we, the Ministers of Defense of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Poland, unanimously recommend withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention. With this decision, we are sending a clear message. Our countries are prepared and can use every necessary measure to defend our territory and freedom.
Over 180 attempts to legally cross the border from Belarus to Poland in the last 24 hours. Those are the latest reports coming from the Polish border guard. Meanwhile, Latvian authorities initiated a closure of 3 border checkpoints with Belarus and Russia as migration from these countries continues to pose a threat to Western security.
The last 24 hours have seen the highest number of illegal immigration attempts from Belarus to Poland recorded in a single day this year so far. The Polish border guard has been reporting a spike in the number of attempts to illegally cross the border in recent days. There was also an incident when migrants attacked Polish servicemen with rocks, damaging their vehicle. But the Polish-Belarusian border is not the only hotspot in the region. 3 border crossings in Latvia, 1 with Belarus and 2 with Russia, are pending partial closure. Few days ago, 4 immigrants were detained at the crossing at the Latvian-Belarusian checkpoint in Paterniki.
The migrants were staying in close proximity to the state border. No aggression was observed, but there were some shouts and statements about border guard officials who monitored the situation. During the interviews with them, it became clear that there were risks of group gatherings, quite large groups, and they can register in an organized manner.
On Monday, 30 people were detained at the crossing, prompting the conversation on halting pedestrian movement across Latvia's border with Belarus and Russia. The Latvian Interior Ministry says such measures are a response to growing hybrid threats from the two countries.
Today is a crucial day as high-stakes talks between the Kremlin and Washington are set to take place. On Monday night, Donald Trump claimed that without his intervention, Ukrainian soldiers would have already perished. Speaking at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., Trump went on to say that the fate of Ukrainian troops will be a key topic during his call with Vladimir Putin later today. Our Kyiv correspondent Oz Katerji reports on what we can expect from these talks.
A crucial day politically and diplomatically for Kyiv, as Donald Trump is expected to have a phone conversation with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin about the US's potential proposed ceasefire plan in Ukraine. Now, Donald Trump spoke about this briefly at the Kennedy Center in Washington on Monday. So let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Tremendous things to report. Tomorrow I'm speaking with President Putin of Russia to save some soldiers who are in deep trouble. They're captured. Essentially, they're surrounded by Russian soldiers. So I give you a lot of different things in one news conference, but it's a big deal. They're surrounded by Russian soldiers, and I believe if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be here any longer. I was able to get them not to do anything at this moment, but it's a bad situation in Russia. And it's a bad situation in Ukraine.
So Donald Trump there praising himself for preventing an encirclement of Ukrainian troops that the Ukrainian government strongly denies. They deny that their troops were ever encircled. This is going to be a running theme for these negotiations, with Donald Trump seemingly adopting positions that come from the Kremlin. There is nervousness here in Kyiv about the reporting coming from US media outlets suggesting that Donald Trump is willing to approve of Russian control of Crimea in exchange for some sort of deal with the Russians over Ukraine. Now this, it must be said, would be strongly opposed by the government here in Kyiv and by a large proportion of the population. So a lot of nervousness and anticipation as to what could come from this conversation between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. But one thing is for certain, the Ukrainian government have set out red lines that they aren't willing to back down on. And if Donald Trump thinks that he can push past those red lines for an agreement with Russia, the Ukrainian government are going to have some very strong words to say about that. Zos Chatterjee reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha has reiterated that no decision about Ukraine can take place without its involvement. During his visit to New Delhi, Sybiha went on to say the possible peace deal with Russia should not include restrictions on Ukraine's military. Kyiv's chief diplomat also said that Ukraine will never recognize any territories occupied by Russia as part of the Russian Federation.
Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, nothing about Europe without Europe. No compromises at the cost of Ukrainian territorial integrity and sovereignty. No restrictions to our military capacities. And no third country has a right to block our will or our way to participate in any union, in any alliances. That's our principal positions, and of course we will never recognize any part of territories occupied by Russians. Now is a time for diplomacy, for a strong diplomacy.
Warsaw has made it clear that it wants Ukraine to join the EU during its EU Council presidency. Poland's EU Affairs Minister Adam Szłapka reiterated this on Monday in Brussels before high-level talks centering on EU issues, but admitted that unanimity from 27 EU member states is required for this accession to occur. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins reports from Brussels.
Poland's EU Affairs Minister Adam Szłapka reiterated that he wants Ukraine to join the EU as part of Poland's EU Council presidency. Now, the mandate started in January and winds up in June, but that minister conceded that unanimity is required for Ukraine to join the 27-member-strong European Union. The issue here is convincing Hungary to vote in support. Let's take a listen to what Szłapka had to say in Brussels on Tuesday morning.
We know the political situation in terms of bilateral relations between Ukraine and Hungary. We, as I always saying, we are determined as a Polish presidency to move forward the enlargement process. This is one of our priorities during Polish presidency. In a few minutes, we are going to have a meeting with Marta Kos. She is also very determined. Commission is very determined. They are preparing screenings. So we are ready to work on that, but we need unanimity, unfortunately.
Now, Szłapka's Hungarian counterpart, János Bakos, was asked this very question by reporters ahead of a General Affairs Council in Brussels. He said the question now is in the hands of Hungarian citizens, as last week that country's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, announced that a mail-in ballot system will determine how Hungarians feel about Ukraine joining the EU. But what has become apparent is that Hungary is becoming increasingly isolated as the other EU member states vote in support of military support packages for Ukraine, as well as long-lasting ceasefire negotiations. Let's take a listen to what that Hungarian minister had to say.
We have a very strong strategic position, and the quality of the position is not described by being alone or being in majority. We believe that time has proven again that the Hungarian position on ceasefire and sustainable peace was right from the very beginning.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, as well as Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk, will both be in Brussels on Thursday for high-level talks. We'll wait and see how both of these leaders litigate Ukraine joining the EU further. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
On Tuesday, the German parliament will vote on a bill that will make it possible for Berlin to take on unprecedented levels of debt to invest in defence. Germany aims to spend hundreds of billions of euros on national defence and infrastructure renovation. The new plan, however, requires changes to the German constitution. Let's go live to our correspondent Ovidiusz Niceja, who's in Berlin. Hello, Ovidiusz.
Hello, Marie. So a very intense debate is going on. We're still waiting for that historic vote, which could pave the way for new investments, up to €1 trillion in new investments over the next decade in infrastructure and defense. As you said, Germany for decades has been an economic superpower. However, its military was not as strong as countries with similar economies. So now the likely next German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, want to strengthen German military and make it a formidable force in Europe, as the recent time of uncertainty has shown how important raw military force is in the context of any negotiations, in the context of new power structures in Europe. Therefore, he has struck a deal with the Social Democrats and with the Greens to amend the constitution, because Germany has a debt limit, a debt break enshrined in its constitution, which limits the amount of money that Germany as a state can borrow. Earlier today, Friedrich Merz spoke to the German lawmakers. Let's take a listen.
The decision we are making today regarding defense readiness in the broadest sense for our country cannot be anything less than the first major step toward a new European defense community. A defense community that also includes countries not members of the European Union that are very interested in building this common European defense together with us, such as the United Kingdom and Norway. This is precisely where we stand today with the decision we want to make.
It's important to note that before the German federal elections, Friedrich Merz was against amending the debt break, and therefore his opposition is saying that he has lied to his voters. We have also seen protests outside the parliament building of people who do not want the debt break to be touched, to be amended. However, the next, likely Germany's next chancellor is saying that this is necessary in order to once again build German military power.
Ovidiusz, thank you very much for that report, and we wait with bated breath to see what happens later today. Following a devastating fire at a nightclub in North Macedonia, which claimed the lives of 59 young people, protests and unrest have been sweeping the country. On Monday, thousands gathered in Skopje and Kočani, where the fire occurred, to mourn the victims and demand justice for the tragedy.
Macedonians are honoring the 59 victims of a devastating fire at a nightclub. But apart from sadness, there's also anger. In the town of Kočani, where the incident took place, protesters gathered in front of the local town hall. Tensions escalated when demonstrators, frustrated by the lack of action, began throwing bottles, eggs, and other items at the town hall, breaking several windows.
It is a disgrace to the country that allows for the death of 59 young people, and to the authorities that are supposed to ensure that kids can spend their free time safely.
Demonstrators have also targeted a cafe allegedly linked to the nightclub's owner. In the capital Skopje, thousands of students from the University of St. Cyril and Methodius gathered to pay their respects.
I can't understand how you're allowed to have a dance club and use pyrotechnics in a space like this. My condolences to all the families.
Authorities revealed that the nightclub where the fire occurred lacked the necessary licenses, an evacuation plan, and other required safety measures. An investigation into the cause of the fire is ongoing, and several individuals, including former government officials, have been detained.
What has happened was worse than a crime. This was, I would say, a mass murder allowed to happen by someone for money, for bribes, for corruption.
155 people were hospitalized as a result of the fire, with some being transferred to medical facilities abroad for treatment. Those who died will be laid to rest here at a local cemetery in Kočani.
And that concludes World News at 2 p.m. Thanks very much for joining us and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.